Hi guys, based on your feedback, I thought I would share some of the things I've learned about managing time more efficient in the classroom. And at the end of the presentation, I really want to hear about the things that you've been doing because I think it's fun to compare notes. All right, now these are the pillars of my time management. It's not just about being more efficient. These are things that I really do to keep me sane. You know, like our students, we have so many competing responsibilities that we can't be hooked into the classroom 24/7. And you know, Jamie was talking about a few forums ago that it's good to maintain a good work-life balance, and these things help me do that. So I'm going to go over each one. Okay, so my first rule is absolutely to start early. So my classes are always set up on Thursdays so students can see that there's an instructor present when they get access on Fridays. Doing that encourages them to get in and start posting early, which is something that we want them to do because when they start early, they also have less problems managing their time as well. So my setup includes posting all the announcements for week 1 based on a timer, and I do that every Monday for standard announcements each week. And if I need to copy announcements from a previous course, I always copy the HTML code and not the announcement itself. I find that's a time saver for me because there are less problems with formatting and links working, and I'm such a perfectionist that I'll spend a half an hour trying to figure out how to get the image just right or get the spacing just right. I also start responding early in introductions. So if students post on a Friday, I'm in there on a Friday because the more I respond, the more students respond. And by day 1 of class, I have a huge chunk of those responses completed, which we know is a blessing in week 1 when we have to respond to all those students in the intros and then do another to 20 to 25 in the discussions. So starting early absolutely helps. Setting a schedule for teaching and setting daily goals is something I also recommend for efficiency. And what I mean is not only setting aside specific times that you'll be in the classroom during the week, but also setting goals for the activities you'll be doing. So for example, it's a Tuesday and I tell myself I'll be in the classroom for no more than 2 to 3 hours. So I'll set a goal of checking emails and the Ask Instructor forum for the first half an hour. Then I'm done and I push that aside. And I'll say I'm grading 10 discussions, I'm going to grade 5 papers, and I'm going to respond to at least 5 students in the discussions. Of course, your goals are about what works for you, and because I know I'm not a fast grader, I'm slow as snail when grading, so trying to do them all at once would just not be pretty. I'd never get done. So I spread them out and I do a little bit each day. I do that for discussions as well because I want to be in there engaging as early as students start posting, and because we do ask instructors to post the bulk of responses before Sundays, so the earlier I get in, the earlier I get that done. And I also mentioned setting a schedule for responding to emails because you really don't want to get distracted by emails while you're working on your other goals. And of course, with the mobile app, it's certainly faster to check emails, but I still check it during certain blocks of the day because I don't want to feel like I'm always hooked into the classroom or I'm conditioned to immediately respond as soon as I hear that notification, which we know sometimes comes in at midnight, wakes me up. So these are tips that should help to limit how many of those extra questions you get from students. So if you find that more than one student is emailing you the same question, it's really more efficient to address the issue with the whole class. Because if a couple of students are there confused and asking questions, then more emails generally follow. If the answer to the question is in the course, like how many times do we get when are grades due question, the answer really is in the course. So I'll answer that question, but I'll also instruct students to check the course. We want to train them that their first step in problem solving is to look for the answer in the course before contacting you. So always refer them to the course. And I've also seen instructors post FAQs in their classes, which is another great strategy for addressing those questions we know we'll most likely get. And I also recommend using your announcements to set clear expectations for assignments and behaviors. So for me, the big one is week 2, that week 2 discussion, where students are asked to talk about each pattern and then they're asked to talk about how it can affect their lives, I think. Okay, so for me, my students miss that part of the question most times. So I'm proactive in presenting a template in that discussion so they can see it. And so that stops me from every time I have to tell them to go back to answer that part or giving them feedback. So that saves me time. So I find that the more proactive you are in addressing these things, the less problems you have later on. Okay, saving and reusing material is always a time saver. I like to look at it as, you know, if you're in a traditional classroom, I don't throw everything out at the end of the semester and start from scratch each time. I build on my pool of resources and I refine as I go along. And I think this goes the same goes for announcements, feedback files, and even discussion responses. What you don't want to do is produce canned responses to students. You know, I mean, in whatever you plan to reuse, you have to tailor them to fit the students. Believe me, students can absolutely tell if an instructor is truly engaged or if they're just dialing it in. So you really want to tailor everything to fit your particular students. And of course, this only works as a time saver if you're organized in saving the things you plan to use. So if you're like me, where a sequence is just enough to tell you the general direction where to find stuff, you spend more time searching for stuff, and then you'll actually not really save any time. So organization helps. Okay, so grading is certainly another area where we spend a lot of time as instructors. As I suggested before, it helps to set goals where you grade in chunks. And if there's anyone still not creating their own personal feedback comments in Waypoint, please do. That's a huge time saver. And it also helps to focus on the purpose of the paper and not get sidetracked. So if you run into papers that are not well written, try not to get sidetracked by grammatical and mechanical issues. You don't want to spend too much time correcting grammatical errors because that's really the student's job. A more efficient approach is to point to examples of the types of errors you notice, tell students how to correct that type of error, and where they need to go for more assistance. So stay focused on what the purpose of the paper is. Also, as you respond in the discussions, you want to make notes in an accompanying document on the quality of the response. So I have a Word document open and I have my discussion responses, and I start making notes because when I get to the students post on Thursdays, by the time I get to grading the next Tuesday, if I have to read over again, it's like reading critically twice. It's wasting time. I can use the notes I make within the feedback, and it makes my life that much easier. Also, this is how I format my feedback because I think it saves me time. It may not, but I feel more efficient because with the overall summary there, I just stick my name in there and I really focus on this section, the individualized section, and I like my little quick tip section. So all of that just makes me feel faster. So the point is that if you have the recommended areas, the overall summary, the individualized comments, and the rubric, you can mess with your formatting until you find something that makes you feel efficient as you grade. And for those of us who are sticklers about word count, this is a great tool. I used to copy and paste the responses in Microsoft Word, and that sucks up a lot of time. So with this, you can download the word count add-on, and then you highlight the area, the post, you press Alt-Shift-C, and this nifty little box appears, and it tells you exactly how many words the students used. And so it's awesome for saving time, and I believe this add-on is available in Firefox and Chrome. Okay, so final grades. It's a pain for me that the overall column isn't right next to the final letter grade column. It's always a pain for me. And I'm always worried about making mistakes because then I would have to spend time doing grade change forms. So what I do is I use the show all button in the gradebook. I export the grades to a spreadsheet that I can manipulate so I can cut out everything else but the student's name and the overall comments. I enter final grades there, I double check and triple check, and then I can quickly enter them in the gradebook. That makes me feel awesome and efficient. And for those of us who teach SSO, the show all button is a great way to see all the tasks on one screen when we're ready to enter final grades, because I know after a while those P's and NP's start running together, and we don't want to give students a P who should have an NP or an NP who should have a P. So show all works great. And that's all I have. When it comes to time management, I found that it's ongoing. We just have to be intentional about breaking out of that daily grind ever so often and actively look for ways to save time and make things faster, like adding questions to our FAQs or being more proactive in providing tips and addressing problems that may arise in the classroom. So now that I've shared what I do, are there any tips that you guys would like to share? And I'm reading because I'm not a very good reader and talker. Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks, Jayashree. Okay. Thanks, Wendy. Okay. Well, okay, Jennifer. I generally cut out the question part. And my precision it goes crazy. So Jennifer, I cut out the questions, I leave only the words, and I'll tell students in the feedback, this is how many words you're supposed to have, this is what you actually have. The parts of the questions that you copy and paste really don't apply. Because, if they don't learn it in EXP, they're going to learn it much later on, and it's going to hurt when they start losing points for that stuff. Okay, I guess that's it for me. Back to you, Debbie.